So, Theba, I would like to personally thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us here at Alzheimer's Arkansas as we highlight caregivers. So, I guess I just need you to tell us a little about yourself and what you do and how your caregiver journey started.
Sure. I work at THV11 in the marketing department. I've been there 24 years. I just turned 56. My caregiving journey started first with my mom, probably about 5 years ago when I started noticing a difference in cognitive memory. And I think that when I'm always talking to people, one of the first things that happened for me is I went into a slow panic because I didn't know what was going on. My mom and dad never dealt with Alzheimer's in their family. Their parents died of cancer. So it was a very new term and understanding for me. So I was in a slow panic, and I began to reach out to some of my friends and getting some feedback from them and realizing what I didn't know and what I did not have in place was really where the panic came from. I just did not understand that I needed to make sure we had paperwork in order. I didn't know how fast the disease worked. And so I began to be very productive in regards to reaching out. I had a friend say, go ahead and reach out to a caregiver organization. Now, the reason I did that is because in the interim, my parents are not married, but my father, who I thought had, what is that? What is it called? Sorry. He had dementia, Lewy body, but it had the Parkinson-like symptoms. My apologies. Okay. So I really thought he was diagnosed with Parkinson's years ago. So I thought when he expressed a need to be closer to me, that's what we were dealing with. I didn't understand, and he didn't understand all the other aspects. So when he got here, then that's when I realized things were very different. And as I reached out and got doctor's appointments and understanding, soon he would be diagnosed with dementia Lewy body. And again, I was like, huh? What? What do I do? What does it look like? So I quickly decided to start taking classes that were offered here and there. UAMS had a class. There were a variety of classes that I would learn about, and I just go take them and listen to what experts had and what other caregivers were dealing with on a variety of the dementia spectrum. Knowing that I was dealing more progressively with my father's disease than my mom's, I could focus on him, but then she needed my attention too. And so eventually I focused on her too to get her diagnosis, which was just Alzheimer's at the time and still is. So I was dealing with two different diseases at the time. So my brother came and gave me some support. But again, a couple of the key things that if I have a friend reach out to me or even a stranger and just want to talk, I'm just like, well, the things that my friends encourage me to do is first get a caretaking organization, a top rank organization, one that has got a good reputation. Go ahead, and with my father, I went ahead and got a folder started with them so that when I did need them, everything was set in motion. It wouldn't be this big delay, because with his disease, it progressed so dramatically that I was on the, within signing my father up for about a month prior, I was already on the phone with him, and we were starting these small increments of care while I went to work, and that was 4 hours a day, then it went to 8 hours a day, and then it went longer, and then that's when my brother stepped in and came to Little Rock to live and be a caretaker as well. So he passed away November 1st of last year with that. My brother went back to where he lives, and so I am here. And then, of course, COVID really changed.
Yes.
So it's been interesting, bless her heart. COVID's very new to her every day. In her phase, she knows who I am. She knows where she's at. Just the real cognitive short-term memory situation is pretty significant. With her disease, she doesn't like to eat, so I have to continue to remind her to eat. And slowly but surely, she'll want to know where the dishes are, you know, where are the bowls. But I'm here. We share a home together, and I've been here for many years. And so she loves the fact that I'm home working. And so at the present time, I'm able to steal away a couple hours here and there to go shoot something for the TV station, and then I'm back, and most of the time I'm editing. So, but there will be a time here shortly, again, the same organization that assisted me with Dad, they have a file on her, and when I do need to call, we'll do that. So it's where we are right now in that phase.
So it looks like you almost immediately sought help in some, you know, and I think that's important for caregivers to realize that having a plan, I talk about that all the time, because today may be okay, but you don't know how fast or when it's going to progress, like before your eyes almost. Sometimes it just changes just like that, like with your father, like before you know it, there's a change. And
Right.
having a plan is so important. So thank you for sharing that with caregivers, like it's almost getting your paperwork, getting your things in order, because it almost seems, I don't know, for me, like sometimes people are like, what, backwards or something, to say you need to get your legal paperwork in order, your POAs or anything you need to do, get that in order before you kind of do anything else, because
Absolutely,
it's going to be a while. So you said you sneak away. So as a caregiver, we always talk about caregivers taking care of themselves. So how do you take care of yourself?
Well, I have a great group of friends. I call them my tribe, and they are quite understanding. So a lot of the time, because of sundowners, and if we spend time together, they come here. Of course, they want to make sure Mom is completely protected, so they wear a mask, but we usually go into another room and spend time together, have dinner, or I can steal away and go have dinner with somebody outside, of course, because right now my main goal is to stay as safe as possible from COVID and not bring it back, because since March 13th, my mom has only left this house to go to the eye doctor, the dentist, and to get her hair cut, and making sure that those times are really brief. But yeah, I was, you know, I think if you don't mind if I backtrack just a little bit, I told you I had a slow panic because I absolutely did not know where to start. Reaching out and talking to people and having a plan was so life-saving for me. It helped me sleep at night. The power of attorney, everything that I could do while my parents were still able to understand and work with me and go, yes, I want you to have control over my checking account and my doctor's appointments and all that. That was the first step that just gave me a relief to know that I could handle things on the phone, because I realized how quickly any banking or doctor's appointments or anything like that was such a stressor for them. So having that power of attorney, having whatever paperwork you need signed so that you can have conversations with your parents, doctors, etc. And then again, I'm sorry if I'm backtracking, but the classes were so incredibly important. And then there was a care group that my brother and I went to for a while, and that was nice to go and sit with people, get encouragement, but also hear their stories. And though the stories are daunting, you get great ideas from them about things that they did. And each patient's so different, I understand, but there's so many logical, reasonable things that they would talk about that you were like, okay, I'll start implementing that. And it could be as simple as not using certain terms to agitate them or create more fear for them. Like, don't you remember, using words like that? Because it helps you too, because you just go into a rhythm And it takes time. And I always tell my friends or strangers who are asking, it takes time to break that habit, because you desperately want them to remember. So you, out of your own ego, you're like, don't you remember I told you that? And
Yeah.
it really is out of fear. And then I think the other thing that I learned in these groups is that you both your parents and you're going through a certain type of grieving at the loss of that relationship. And if you're not aware of it, you have no idea what's going on. You just feel like you're losing it. But it's reasonable. It's something you can talk about, you can identify, and begin to process what's happening a lot easier, a lot healthier.
Yeah. And you brought out a great point with going to groups and other people that are going through what you're going through. It takes away the isolation, because in your mind and in your experience, you think you're the only one going through the grieving, and why don't they remember? And you're losing the person, because the person they were they're no longer that person. So we want them to be as independent and as smart, and like they've always been empowered to do certain things, and now you just want them to be that person. So it's important to caregivers to understand that having other people relieves that isolation that caregivers feel. So
well, and also knowing that they too, they have their own level of fear that they're dealing with, and you have to be compassionate and empathetic to the reality that, like, I could tell both of them, it was difficult for them to tell me what was happening. They would just go, I feel weird. And the things, of course, the typical things that you learn that is going to be really where you butt heads is that's like the checkbook, the driving, some of those things. And it can get really heady, and it can get really combative if you yourself are not in a place of awareness that they're scared. They're going to try to hang on as long as they don't understand what's going on. You don't understand what's going on. So yes, having a care group, going to classes, and just educating, and really, I thought what was so helpful is just little ideas that they would throw out. Things to say, not to say, things to distract, saying that little fiblets. I always like that. You can say a fiblet. It's not important.
We always give permission. You know, we're from the South, and we go to Sunday school, and we're not supposed to lie, and especially to our parents, right? Oh my goodness. But we have to step into their reality.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have to, for their sake and our sake, we do have to learn to tell those little fiblets, those therapeutic lies is what I like to call them.
Yeah, I like that.
Yes. So
it keeps the peace, I can tell you that.
It keeps the peace. So you've said so much, and so what do you think your biggest challenge was as a caregiver?
I think the first was me just coming to terms with my own fear, anger that it was happening, and understanding that I was beginning the process of dealing with some grief. The second was just getting organized, feeling on top of things, trying my hardest not to, I think what I always tell people is, like, I really fought this at the beginning, but it makes sense. They do start to act like children, but they're not children. So find a way to communicate where you understand that their reasoning is so limited, and it will continue to be limited, but you can still talk with respect and kindness. And I thought what was the biggest challenge at the very beginning is because they're afraid and they're not able to articulate, they are really observing their loved ones. Mm-hmm. So I could tell my mom and dad in particular would really study me. And if I seemed upset, it just really upset him. If I seemed nervous, then it was really upsetting to him. And the same with my mom. So it's another reason you just kind of die to self as much as you can, and then find those groups to find yourself. But die to self when you're with them, because the relationship is drastically changing. It has flipped upside down, and you can learn a lot about yourself very quickly when you decide to make those changes. that keep love and compassion and kindness and all that at the forefront of this relationship, because ultimately their fear and their confusion is going to outweigh mine.
Yes.
And so I always think of the victories. Yes, man, the checkbook was the biggest one.
Was it?
Oh, yes. And they told us in group there are certain things that they felt they knew they did well, and when they start to lose it. So her just relinquishing control, I had to give her time to do that. And now, because we have complete trust and we have a great relationship, so now she doesn't have to. Now, my dad was different. He was like,
it driving for him?
No, he was, both of them have been great. And that was a big fear. Because, you have to remember, it's very difficult for us as kids to all of a sudden wear a caretaker, because they're still our parents.
Yes.
So if they want to do what they want to do and they demand doing this, you're like, oh, okay. You become a little kid and you realize, wait, I got to do this for their protection, for my peace of mind and the protection of other people. So I've been extremely fortunate in some of these aspects with both of my parents. My father was just hands off. I mean, when I asked my dad, when I didn't really understand what was going on with him, I said, he lived in Alton, Illinois at the time. I said, Dad, what do you want? And he goes, I want to be there near you. And within a month, we moved him here. Again, while he was capable, while he was able to make decisions, he needed a lot of encouragement, of course, because he left his childhood home to move here. But once we got him here and got him settled and got him close, then we were able to institute a lot of just, things that could bring comfort and stability and safety to him. And so I have that here now with my mom. And, there's a lot of things that I've encouraged people to do in regards to, if they are working from home, get a Nest Cam. Again, this is in the very beginning stages. There'll be a point of time when I am caretaking full time here, yeah, even with me working, and maybe even me still working from home. I don't plan on going back to work for quite some time. I know that my job is extremely supportive and wants to make sure my mom is safe. So they want to keep me as safe as possible. So I'm very grateful to them for that. So I think, I don't lose as much sleep, because I think at first when I was so afraid and I had no idea if I was going to be able to personally handle it, my faith in God was like, I had to really grab a hold of that and trust it immensely. And so when I was so afraid I was on my own, that's when I'd had sleepless nights. But when I realized I had my God, and then I had my friends, and I had great resources of people to reach out to, I started resting at night. You did ask, and I apologize because I felt like I jumped back, but I do go on bike rides. I'm doing some studies online because of COVID. I've just decided to do take some classes. So I do have that. We're in a routine here where we go to bed fairly early, because we're both early risers anyway. And so I'm able to do that when I go to bed. And really, they just don't want to be alone. I tell my friend, a good friend of mine went through this, where all of a sudden her mom was she could tell her mom was afraid of being alone. And I was like, that's a sign where they're just not feeling capable of even making themselves a sandwich.
Yeah.
So if they tell you they're afraid and they're able to verbalize that, jump on that.
Yeah. So I've heard a lot, but I just want to clarify.
Sure.
How has this been rewarding to you, your caregiving experience?
Oh, I think on what you and I talked about earlier, I had to come to terms very quickly with my own fear, my own arrogance, my own ego, my own anxiety levels, and I had to deal with them very quickly so that I could be the best caretaker for my parents. First and foremost, trusting God that He was with me the entire time, knowing that I had the resources. So I think that when you realize that you've bypassed where you were That's that's so rewarding. Because, I mean, there were nights I cried myself to sleep, and there were nights I was so afraid. There were nights I was checking the Nest Cam for my dad, like every night it would go off and I couldn't sleep. But then I found myself into a rhythm. I think what you said was the most important thing, is to know that I wasn't alone, that this wasn't this was just happening to me. But to me, it was happening for the first time because, again, the word Alzheimer's was never, ever used up until my parents. I sincerely had no idea what it meant. And now I'm in an age group where my friends are beginning to experience aspects of that in their own life, so with their parents. So it's now a term that I pay attention to. But I think the thing that gives me the greatest joy is knowing that I can do it, and that I'm doing it, and that it's not like I'm healing something, because this is not going to be healed, meaning this is going to get worse. Mm-hmm. So now that I've gotten past that, very dramatic stage for me, I'm going to hunker in and know, okay, I'm going to get through the next phase and the next phase. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's going to be dramatic. This is a woman that I love deeply, but I did it with my father. I was there until the very end with him. And I was like, I can do this. I'm not going to fall apart.
You're not. So just to sum it all up, if you're speaking to caregivers today, and of course, it is a journey. It has its ups, its downs. Some people are just stepping into caregiving. Don't know if they will, because a lot of us will be caregivers.
Yes.
And I don't think we're prepared for it, because I don't think we grow up and say, hey, I'm going to be a caregiver. It doesn't happen like that, especially with Alzheimer's and dementia. We don't think about our parents. We just think about maybe they get old and maybe we need to be there for them, and they get older and they need more support, but we don't think about the diseases. So if it was one thing you want to tell caregivers across Arkansas, like one tidbit of sound advice, what would it be?
Start planning now. I mean, and I think that's probably the hardest part, is I would be sounding off to people younger than me to begin having the conversation, know that it could happen, and begin in the most healthy way, having a conversation with your parents to alleviate stress for them and stress for you, so that you're not at the last minute trying to figure things out, get financial, it's just, there's so much to that part of it, that's the most stressful part, paying bills. Because I know that my father, he began to miss bills. Well, I didn't know it because he wasn't here until his bank lady, which is so sweet of her, to call me and let me know what was going on. So planning, that sounds so generic, and it is all inclusive, but planning, beginning to understand the phases of Alzheimer's so that you can be prepared for that. And I guess I just didn't realize how prevalent it truly is now, as opposed to, and maybe you could speak on it, and maybe I'm just thinking that, but it just seems like a lot more people are struggling with it than my parents' time.
And you? So, there's some conflict with the answer that they say about age 80, one out of two people will have Alzheimer's, will be diagnosed. However, when you kind of think about traditionally, because our age, our mortality age has risen, because not many people live to be 80
right.
20 years ago. Like, I remember being a kid, I didn't really know any 80-year-olds, but like my son knows a lot of 80-year-olds. So as the generations, as our health gets better, it may seem to be that you're at a higher risk for dementias, namely Alzheimer's, although it's not a normal part of aging, if that makes any sense. But because we live longer.
Yeah, doctors that always threw me when they'd go, this is not normal. And I was like, what are you talking about? Both my parents are dealing with it.
You're like, what are you talking about? It's not really normal. However, at about 80, 1 out of 2 people will have a diagnosis.
Sure.
So the longer we lived, we could probably look for more people to have it. And statistically, if we keep going at the rate that we are, that the numbers will double at some time. You know, so
sure. Well, that makes sense.
And like again, for us now, I like to talk about normal aging, like what Alzheimer's and dementia look like. Like, it's not just memory loss. And I think that a lot of people think about Alzheimer's, we say memory loss, but right. A lot of other things happen before the memory loss. So paying attention to our loved ones when they're having a hard time paying bills. And we have good coping skills, so we know how to cover up those things, correct?
Oh, yeah.
You know about that.
Her eating changed.
Yeah. Personality changes.
Yes.
Not wanting to be left alone, not wanting to go to the places or have the places they used to, or participate in the activity, not wanting to go to church or the community center. It's all because of fear, and they feel different when they go out now. So
that's a good point, and that you brought up something that would be something else that you feel bad because you feel like, well, I need to get them here, get them out here, take them here. If they don't want to, they do not want to, and it's more stressful for them if you force them out of this comfort zone. So don't feel bad if they want to stay home, because my mom, even going and getting her hair cut, she cannot wait to get back home. And so you don't have to be their entertainment. You don't have to just drag them places because you feel like if they feel safe, if my mom wants to be here with her cats, that is what she will do, and I will support that. One last thing I was going to tell you about, it's a very personal thing, but I think it's something that's probably isn't talked about enough, is, you know, when your parents are aging and you have things that you've never dealt with, like in your childhood, it will still be there, and it cannot be resolved at this point. No. And you have to find a place for that. So I got a therapist as well on a personal level, and met with a therapist on triggers, because I moved my dad here and I hadn't been around him in this long period of time, this much, you know. It's like, so I had him and my mom, and they were interacting, and they're divorced, and my brother was here, and there was a lot of triggers going on. And we had to find a place for that. And it was not going to be the place to not deal with it is with your Alzheimer's or dementia, because they're not going to be able to understand. It's not the time or the place. It is, you've got to deal with it yourself and find a healthy place for it.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Those words of wisdom right there. Family dynamics shows up.
Yeah,
and so Alzheimer's and dementia. Yeah, it really does.
And it's you can't hold them responsible for it anymore. Whatever it is, you have to take responsibility, and you got to deal with your own healing. And I was blessed to do so, because how I was able to receive that healing and understanding and tools to deal with triggers, etc., made me a better caretaker for them, so I could just focus on them.
Well, I want to thank you so much. You are so insightful, and I hope that you enlighten so many caregivers. And you know, you said the key words. Yes, you can. You can do it. You didn't say it was going to be easy, but you said you can do it. So thank you for those words.
Well, thank you for reaching out to me. It's a difficult subject, but I'm passionate about it because I want to do it. I want to do it well, and I want to honor God in the process.
And you are doing a great job. I mean,
I guess
you're doing it out of love. You're doing it when you do it out of love. You find a way to do it, right? Like, even the impossible becomes possible because of the love. So. Oh,
I agree. And there's one thing that would bring me to tears with my dad is when I thought he was afraid. That's like, you don't want people to feel that. So you do everything that you can. And with mom, when they are afraid, you will do everything you can to make sure they feel comfortable and safe. And that's really my role right now, is to make them feel comfortable and keep them safe. And again, that's about, and I misspoke. I meant I say to honor them, but to glorify God by honoring them. Then it's all going to be a really blessed situation for all. So far so good. I'm trying.
Thank you so much. I don't know how many ways I could say thank you for doing this for us and for the caregivers across Arkansas, because you're a caregiver, and so many times we think we're alone. We're in this journey alone, and the reality is, like, we care for our loved ones better than anyone. We might not feel like it, but
right.
We do. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was nice meeting you, and it was nice talking.